These past 2 months have been prolific when it comes to makeup empties. I've actually finished 20 makeup products in March and April. The main reason for so many empties in one go is because I just finished a year-long makeup no-buy in April. And I think that will also lead to more empties in the rest of this coming year, mainly because I'm being really choosy about what makeup I bring in. And so I'm not bringing in a lot of new things, which allows me time to really focus on the stuff that I have. So again, I by no means think that this is the norm. It's certainly not the norm for me, but I think it does make for a really interesting empties video because I have so many different products to talk about. A lot of them I really, really like. First up is this lip balm from Summer Fridays. It was in the shade Birthday Cake. Something I didn't even realize until I was more than halfway through the tube is that there is shimmer in here, just a little bit. You definitely can't feel it on your lips. It doesn't feel gritty. I didn't even realize it had glitter in it until a long time after wearing this regularly, so I don't think it looks glittery on the lips either. I got this as a duo in part of like a birthday set from my sister-in-law last year, so I finished this one and I have probably half of the iced coffee version of this that came in that duo. I really like these. I've gone through several tubes of these ones. I do feel like they're not as thick as the original formula as they used to be a long time ago. I don't know if they ever changed the formula, but to me it feels different. Still really good though, still definitely in my top favorite balms. But I have recently picked up the Ole Henriksen Palette Preserve and a couple other lip balms, so I don't necessarily need to run out and repurchase this one again, but I did really enjoy it and I'm loving the iced coffee one that I have now. Next up is a primer. This is from What's Up Beauty and it's the Posi-Tivity Lightweight Hydrating Face Primer. I did cut it open to get everything out. I really liked this. This was a beautiful moisturizing primer. It felt very lightweight and it definitely wasn't a gel, but it was kind of like a hybrid between a face cream and a gel. I liked this for the winter months when my skin was drier, but I've definitely stepped away from primers as of late. In fact, I'm finishing the very last one that I have in my collection and I don't really have any intention to purchase any new ones. This one I received in PR. It's silicone-free, clean, cruelty-free, and vegan. And if you are looking for a moisturizing primer, I think this is a really great place to start. And I did count how many uses it took to finish, and it actually took 95 wears before this was gone. Next up is this Cherry Pick Lip Color Butter from About Face in the shade Pink Pina. It was a beautiful peachy color, very moisturizing. I did dig everything out of there. Can you see that? That was really satisfying. I did a short on this as part of a Litmus series either 2 years ago or maybe even the year before that. I'm pretty sure it was 2 Decembers ago. And this took 90 wears to finish. The only reason I wouldn't purchase this again is because it has a really, really, really strong scent. It's very fruity. I want to say it smells like passion fruit, but I'm actually not sure. It's just very, very strong, and I don't love that in lip products. But everything else about it is really wonderful. I have a green color corrector from NYX. I mentioned in my best and worst green color corrector video that this is super pigmented, and so you don't really need a lot. I did end up using a pair of tweezers or a bobby pin or a Q-tip or something, I don't remember, to take out the rest of it and put it in a little pot, and then I finished what was left in that pot. And this took 135 wears to finish. Often I was using this as a foundation mix-in. I find that adding a little bit of green to my foundations helps to neutralize them, and I think it also does a better job at helping to correct the redness that I have in my skin. I think on occasion I would also mix it with cream blushes to neutralize them or make them more cool toned. I love green color correctors, but I have so many of them in my collection still because of that best and worst green color corrector video I did a couple years ago. Even if I didn't have any more green color correctors, this wouldn't be the one that I run out to get again, just because it is so pigmented. It's not very difficult to work with, but it does make it slightly more difficult to work with because if you use even just the tiniest bit too much, it's going to turn whatever you're working with completely green. Next up is this Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. It was just a mini and I had the shade Too Fair. Even though this was a mini, it still took me 160 wears to finish. I mostly used this as a cream blush mixer to make it a little bit more glowy. I did try to wear it as a primer all over my face and it was just too glowy. I don't really like that sort of look on me. I can understand why people really love it though. It is beautiful. It has a hint of coverage. So if you are the type of person who wants a really lightweight, very glowy base, this would be a really good product to wear. It just doesn't work for my skin type or my preferences personally. All right, this is probably the best cost per use product I have ever used in my life. This is a double-ended dual brow definer from AOA and I had the shade Taupe. It had a thick teardrop shaped side, and then it had a really skinny micro pencil side. The thin side took 62 wears to finish, and the thick side actually took 253 wears to finish. So combined, that's over 300 wears on this, and I think I paid $1.88 for it. The only thing that's keeping me from purchasing this again and again is that the taupe shade is a little too warm for my preference. If it was a cooler toned or a true taupe shape, I would definitely purchase another one, but the shade is just off enough for me not to want to get it again. There's a little bit of a missed opportunity there for AOA to not expand their shade range for this eyebrow product. Another product that took me forever to go through is this NYX Bare With Me Concealer Serum in the shade Fair. This was a product that had an airless pump, and so as you wore it, the product would actually go upward. That made for really, really satisfying project pan updates, and I did have this in both my 2025 project pan and eventually finished it in this year's project pan as well. If I was just using it on my under eyes, I would try to pump out the teeniest little bit. Eventually, I did start also using it as a foundation mixer because I found I preferred it as a foundation more so than an under eye concealer. This is a slightly more glowy, serumy concealer, and it doesn't have the amount of coverage for the under eyes that I prefer. For that reason, I probably wouldn't buy it again, but part of me might buy it again because I love how easy this was to travel with, and using it as a foundation meant that I didn't have to bring a big glass bottle with me. So maybe one of these days when I am in the market for another concealer, I'll purchase the Vive concealer because that's my favorite under eye concealer of all time. And I also like that shade as a foundation. And then I'll also buy this because the Vive one is more of a matte finish. This is more glowy. And so if I'm looking for something slightly more skin-like or glowy, I can mix them together. And those can be like my go-to travel foundations as well as concealers. Maybe one day, definitely not right now. And if I didn't mention, this took 290 wears to finish. And if I used it on my under eyes, I counted that as one use. If I used it as a foundation mixer, I counted that as 2 uses because I did use more product in that case. Next up is a blush, a powder blush. I very rarely finish those all the way. And it's from this Natasha Denona Love Glow Cheek Palette. It was in the shade Super Glow. You can follow along me finishing this in my project pan from this year. It was a beautiful, super glowy, very warm, bright pink, which normally I wouldn't like that as a blush, but for some reason I just was really into that at the moment. And it really didn't take that long to finish. It took, I think, 106 wears is what I have written down to finish it completely. And I actually hit pan on it after 28 wears, which really isn't that much as far as blushes, powder blushes go. So I had it, you know, for a very short time, relatively speaking, and I really enjoyed it. I have other glowy blushes that I like that maybe don't have as much apparent glow as this one did. Definitely like a flash in the pan type of thing for me, not like an everyday, always gonna wear my blush like that sort of thing. And I just rolled the cream blush into my project pan, so if you'd like to follow that along, then please watch my project pan series. I have this About Face lip liner that I finished. It was in the shade Midnight Seduction, which was a beautiful, darker, cool-toned, slightly mauvey color. I didn't track how many wears it took to finish this, but I have tracked another one of these About Face lip pencils in the shade Little Little, which is kind of like the lighter counterpart, the lighter version of this shade. And that took 72 wears to finish, which isn't really a lot for a lip liner, but this is very, very creamy. And with this sort of formula, I would use it to line my lips and then I would fill in the rest of my lip with it as well. I really like these. I find myself missing that Little shade because it was just like the perfect cool toned, slightly mauvey shade for me. So again, one of these days when I'm in the market for another lip liner, I'll probably pick up another one of the Little shade. Midnight Seduction was great for the winter because it was a little bit more deep and more aligned with what I was going for makeup wise at the time, but I don't think I would pick up this specific shade again. And if you'd like to see Little and Midnight Seduction compared and on my face, I do have a short for that, again, as part of my Litmus series. I think the majority of my lip products have been featured in one of those shorts at some point. I have 2 mascaras from What's Up Beauty, and I'm currently wearing the black one now, but these are their colored mascaras. So I have the shade Burgundy and Brown, and I really loved these. I didn't realize how much I would enjoy a not black mascara just because I'm so used to that. And these were just such a treat. They gave you a much softer definition, and the Burgundy one was just such a fun pop. It added a little extra something to my eye looks. I feel like it also enhanced my eye color as well. And then the brown one just gave me a softer definition than a black mascara could, and I would often pair these with a brown eyeliner instead of a black one. If you can see on the bottom of it, it has more of a spiky bristle, and then the part up top is much of a softer, more traditional mascara brush. And the way I liked to use this brush is I would use the fluffier side to really kind of get between all of my lashes and coat everything. And then I'd let it dry for a sec, and then I'd turn it around and take those plastic bristle brushes and comb them through to add a little bit more volume. It is a slightly heavier formula, so if you have really lightweight blonde lashes like me, you do run the risk of them being a little bit weighed down. But these were a treat to wear, and I really enjoyed them while I had them. I have a foundation empty. It takes me forever to go through foundations because I mix a lot of different things, and so I'm not just pulling like 2 pumps from one bottle at a time. This is the Fenty Eaze Drops in the shade 6. I have no idea why I got the shade 6. That's way too dark for me on its own. So often I was mixing it with a either much lighter foundation or just a white foundation mixer in order for it to match me better. This took 197 wears to finish. Again, I wouldn't say that was like a full pump, or this is a squeezy bottle, so it doesn't have a pump anyway. It wasn't a full face worth of foundation each time I pulled for it. It was usually just a little bit, like half of a pump. I keep saying pump even though this doesn't pump, but you know what I mean. It's not a full coverage foundation. It definitely has more of a natural finish, slightly less coverage. I don't think I was in love with this, and there are so many foundations that I would love to go out and try, and because of how slowly I go through foundations, it just doesn't make sense for me to have a lot of them. So I wouldn't repurchase this. Not necessarily a mark on this product, it just isn't something that I felt strongly enough about to buy again. This little Beauty Blender setting spray really surprised me. I got this as a gift with purchase when I was buying some beauty blenders from the Beauty Blender website. They were having a really good sale on some of their multi-packs, and this came in the box with it, and I was really happy to see that because my no-buy wasn't yet over and I was running low on setting spray. I wasn't sure if I'd have enough until the end of the year-long no-buy. This little mini actually took 15 wears to finish, and I liked it. I think it performed really well. The only thing that kind of gives me pause is how strongly it smells. It does smell so good though. It smells really sugary and sweet, but I don't know how I feel about spraying that on my face. Now that I smell it again, after not having worn it for a while, I do really like it. But I'm also really hungry right now, so yeah, maybe I would get this again. And then I did finish a mini of the Charlotte Tilbury setting spray. I don't have it on me because I ended up buying a jumbo size of the Charlotte Tilbury setting spray once my makeup no-buy ended. And I just poured from that big bottle into the smaller bottle just because it's a little bit easier to use and easier to travel with. That took 37 uses to finish the mini, and I would definitely buy it again. In fact, if you'd like to see all the makeup I bought once my makeup no-buy year was over, I did do a video on that haul a little bit ago. I have a lip gloss empty. This is from NYX. This is Milky gloss in the shade Mint Chocolate Chip Shake. There used to be a ton of scents or flavors of this. I say flavors because this did smell like mint chocolate chip, and I have another one in Ube milkshake, so the flavor is a little bit different for each one. I think they've reduced the amount of shades that they offer, and so I don't know if this is available anymore. It was a green gloss in the tube, but it was clear on my lips, and I really liked this. It had a very, very subtle minty feel, but it didn't feel plumping, it didn't dry my lips out, it didn't have the negative effects of a minty gloss to me. I took the stopper out to finish this, and it took 128 wears to finish. As accurate as I try to be with makeup tracking, when I am reaching for a lip gloss like that so many times throughout the day to kind of just finish the last little bit of it, I don't always feel like the numbers are like exactly, because I'm not going and updating a spreadsheet every single time I reach for it. I'll reach for it like 3 or 4 times and then update the spreadsheet afterwards, like at the end of the day. That makes me feel like the numbers for these sorts of things aren't always 100% accurate, but I do think that they're pretty close. Like, I don't think I'm too far off with that 128 use mark. Just something to keep in mind. These are more estimates, maybe more so than a very accurate number. Another green color corrector, another stick. This is from AOA, and I used it in a very similar fashion as I did the green color corrector from NYX. I also dug everything out of this and put it into a little container and then finished that as well. and that took 107 wears to finish. This isn't nearly as pigmented as the NYX one, so it's a lot easier to work with, and it's also slightly creamier. The NYX one I feel like had a very matte finish. This one definitely had more of a satin finish. I really enjoyed it. I think when it comes to green color correctors, I do prefer to use like a more liquidy formula in a tube, like with an applicator. I think it's slightly more versatile. I don't necessarily need to use like a pair of tweezers or something to get the right amount onto the back of my hand as a mixer. It really isn't that big of a deal. I still enjoyed it. Now that I'm using the more liquidy formulas, I'm finding that I really enjoy those, and it makes me not necessarily need to run out and get this again. I finished the Soft Balm by Jason Wu. This was in the shade, actually it doesn't say, I wonder if the sticker fell off, but I'm pretty sure it's the Peaches version. Yeah, Peaches. And I used this as a regular lip gloss for a while, and I found that it wasn't nearly as moisturizing. It definitely performs more like a lip oil on me. I prefer a thicker, more moisturizing formula, so I ended up using this to slug my hands, especially in the winter. I get really painful hangnails and my cuticles get really dry and my hands just get really dry in the winter. And so before bed, I would put on a regular hand cream, usually like some sort of rose hip seed oil or something, and then I'd put a little bit of this all over my hands to kind of hold it in, like when people slug their face. That's how I ended up finishing it, and I really liked it for that, but doesn't necessarily need to be something I repurchase for that reason. It's just how I repurpose lip balms that aren't moisturizing enough to use as like an overnight lip mask for me. I'll use them on my hands instead. But yeah, this was good. I'm glad that it's gone. I wouldn't repurchase it again, but I enjoyed it for the purposes that I used it for. I have two eyeshadows here. One of them is from the Colourpop It's Going Coconuts palette in the shade Coco Crush. This is kind of like a cult classic eyeshadow, and I find that it was getting a little bit drier, slightly more fallout as it aged, but if I used a glitter glue with it, it performed just fine, and that is how I finished it. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't purchase the Gone Coconuts palette again just to get this shade back, but I am happy to see that I was able to finish it. It's not every day that I finish an eyeshadow all the way. I say that, but I do have another eyeshadow empty, and this is a single from Ulta Beauty in the shade Good Vibes. This was, I'm almost positive it was like a light, really, really, really light pink shade, more of a cream shade with a slight pink tone to it. And I use shades like that to set my eyeshadow primer so that I have a powdery canvas to put other eyeshadows on top of. I've gone through several of these Ulta shadows for that. I've gone through Purest Snow, which is a white shade, Coconut, which is a really light shade that has a more yellow tone, and then lastly, Good Vibes. I have another shade like this from another Colourpop palette that I'm currently wearing, but once that one is finished and I don't have any more light shades like this for setting my primer, I'll likely purchase the Ulta singles again. I think that they worked really effectively. Although, I'm not sure if they sell these in individual pans anymore. I think they may sell them as singles, like in a container, and you can't take it out. Which feels a bit wasteful if I'm not even using that packaging. So I may find an alternative that I can just buy like a single metal pan instead of all the packaging that goes with it. I'm not sure, I'll have to do some more research on that. But if I can get the single pans again, I'll definitely do that. And the very last one I just talked about in my most recent Project Pan update, and that is this cream blush from Tarte. It was a mini of the shade Pink Sky. They don't make it anymore. I don't think they make whatever line this is that has this really light blue packaging, even though there are some really, really great products from that line that I wish they would bring back. It was a really beautiful shade. If you'd like to see me actually panning it, I did have it in my Project Pan for this year. I loved it. It had a slightly more matte finish. It wasn't fully matte, but it definitely pulled more matte than it did glowy. And so on occasion, I would mix it with something glowy to kind of give more of a glowy cheek effect, but it also worked fine on its own. It was very long lasting, which I don't always say about cream blushes necessarily on my skin. I get oily and I find that cream blushes don't last forever. But if I applied this and then powdered and then put a powder blush on top, it would last all day. It was beautiful. And it was a little bit deeper. I think that amount of pigment just worked really well for what I was trying to do. And I really like the packaging. I might repurpose it for other cream blushes down the line. And that is everything. I have all of my empties, including their retail price. So if you take all of those 20 products together, they equal to $298.66. worth of makeup empties, which in 2 months time is a lot. Again, this isn't necessarily the norm for me. I don't regularly go through this much product in such a short amount of time. It really just is because I haven't been bringing new makeup in, and it's allowed me to focus on some of my older products, and I am so glad that I've been able to enjoy these products while they were still good. My next update will be 2 months from now, and it will be all of my May and June empties. And I've been doing empties videos since I started my channel 7 or 8 years ago, so if you'd like to see more videos like this, I do have a playlist. But in the meantime, that's everything I have. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!